Hello, Mr. Brink. Just unmute. Right now I can see you.
There, now you can hear. Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome, dear. Thank you. I'm going to leave you gentlemen alone now.
I really appreciate your help. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You really make this complicated for the first time anyway.
I appreciate it, Mr. Brink. It's an honor to have you here with us, and the community is very excited to have you here.
Thank you very much.
If you allow me to introduce you in Arabic, please.
Okay.
Thank you. يعطيكم العافية يا شباب. اليوم معنا ضيفنا الأسطورة مارتن برينج، هو أحد أساطير التحليل الفني وله كتب كثيرة تدرس، تقريبا أكثر من 15 كتاب، منها Technical Analysis Explained، الكتاب المشهور واللي يدرس في منهج CMT. وأول صفحة في كتاب CMT Level 1 هو تعريف التحليل الفني من قبل الأسطورة. ما نبي نطيل في تعريف الضيف، ولكن شيء عظيم انه يكون ويانا قامه في التحليل الفني وفي اسواق المال. Thank you, Mr. Brink. I appreciate you coming here, and it's been a while.
شكرا.
Oh, عفوا. Thank you. So please, if we may start about the technical analysis. It's an honor to learn from you, and the first page in the CMT, it's your definition for what is technical analysis. What is technical analysis, and how can new traders or investors benefit from the technical analysis?
Well, my definition of technical analysis is the art of identifying a trend reversal at a relatively early stage and riding on that trend until the weight of the evidence shows or proves that the trend is reversed. In other words, we don't just take one indicator, we need a whole library of indicators, not too many or it gets too complicated, but 4 or 5 or 6 indicators all pointing in the same direction, or most of them pointing in the same direction, is what I mean by the weight of the evidence. And the other thing about the indicators, of course, it's no just putting indicators in there. They have to be indicators that have worked fairly consistently in the past. Working on the assumption that nothing is perfect. No indicator will work 100% of the time, which is why you need several indicators.
Oh, that's great. So how the technical analysis evolved over the years since the 80s until now?
How is it what, sorry?
How the technical analysis evolved and developed over the years?
Well, I think technical analysis, in a sense, is not resolved because we always go back to basic principles. And but what has changed is the speed with which things happen. Because we now, in the 1980s, very few of us had intraday charts. Now everybody's got them, and you can get them for free if you have a brokerage account. So that means that the temptation to shorten your time horizon is increased. But my view is the shorter the trend, the more random it is, and the less likely it is to be successful. The longer trends are much more reliable. They're still unreliable to some degree, but they're relatively more reliable. So we tend to get wrapped up in the idea of the moment or the news of the moment, and lose our perspective about where the market is really going to. So an important thing is to step back and take a look at the big picture, because the big picture will determine the characteristic of the smaller picture. In other words, if you are in a primary bull market, your short-term oscillators are going to have a tendency to stay and go to overbought, more extreme overboughts, and stay there for longer. And when it gets oversold, the market's going to be very sensitive to that. Whereas in a primary bear market, when you're in an overbought situation, that's the time when the market's going to be most sensitive and is likely to come down. And second of all, when you get an oversold reading, that probably doesn't mean much. You're not going to get much of a rally because the tide is going out and prices are coming down.
Oh, that's great. Since many of us in the Arab community has started with your book, Technical Analysis Explained. So can you please tell us how you started with the technical analysis, how you knew about it, and your journey with it?
Well, I started off I was in the marketing department of Unilever in Canada, and I got fired. And I've been looking for a job for a while in the advertising business. This was in Toronto. And I'd been offered some jobs and I turned them down thinking I had a lot of time. But when I got fired, it concentrated my mind, so to speak. And I thought to myself, what else can I do? And I'm from England. And at the time in the 1960s, brokers tended to be partners and had to go to the right school and so forth and have the right education, which I did not have. But in Canada, you could get into the brokerage business very easily. So I got into the brokerage business, and I was fortunate enough to get into one of the better brokers, one of the better houses in Canada, and they had a great library. And in that library was a book written by Edwards and McGee, the original charting original charting book. And I read that and I felt so enamored of that I used that as the basis for selling to my clients. And from there, I bought other books and learned to use other indicators. And I've also developed a few of my own as well.
Wow, that's great. And one of the main questions the new traders or beginners asks, what are the elements to being successful in the stock market or in the financial markets as general, and using the technical analysis in this field?
Well, I think the most important thing is to drive emotion away from your decision making. First of all, you need to have an idea of what makes financial markets work. What is your basic assumption? Mine is that it revolves around a business cycle, and everything comes from that, and that determines the primary trend of stocks, bonds, and commodities. And once you've got a philosophy of how you think the market works, other people would take valuation, and you can have lots of different ideas. But the basic thing is to have some kind of an idea about your philosophy for the markets. And when you've got that, the most important thing in applying it is to be as objective as possible. In other words, when you put money on the line, you can analyze things very easily without money on the line and say, well, I would have bought here and sold there. No problem. But when your money is on the line, you're thinking about, you're facing a big loss, or you're facing a big profit. And so emotion is coming in. And the worst thing possible is to have a lot of emotion. So the idea is you want to get rid of emotion as much as possible. And one of the ways you do that is to adopt indicators that work fairly consistently, and then you have confidence in them. And then not to be thrown out by the initial adversity. So that's an important thing.
About the emotions, eliminating the emotions, I come up to your book, and what is the main focus you think the trader should focus on to eliminate the emotions and the biases?
Well, one of the things to avoid you can avoid emotion with is and this is what I read in Jack Schwager's excellent book on traders, is that a master trader mentally rehearses getting in and getting out of the trade ahead of time. In other words, what you do is before you get into a trade, you don't say how much money am I going to make. You say, well, how much can I afford to lose